Hey there, welcome back to the channel. So I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about having a mythology, having the pantheons, and having a godhead. Now, this is something that ultimately connects back to aesthetics education. This is my argument, especially from the perspective of Marxian ecology, is that the reason why we do that as human beings is because you then have godheads that reflect different aspects of the human condition. That this is a function of consciousness. And this is something that has happened throughout history for as long as there's ultimately been history. The reason being is because, insofar as much that the human artifact is imposed upon with these social, cultural, historical, and spiritual forces, that is then what produces these sort of mythologies that kind of reflect back the divinity of the human experience. I have some of the most five common familiar mythologies that we understand. So we know about, the Egyptian pantheon. You think about Horus, Isis, Seth, all those guys, and the many kings and the pharaohs that they had. This has existed for thousands of years. And the Egyptians existed during the time of the Bible as well, and they were worshiping their gods then. You then also have Igbo mythology. Um, Igbo mythology is not necessarily talked about, not necessarily in Black American culture as much, but Igbo mythology is actually older than Yoruba is. And there's some interesting characters there as well, like Aquinsu, who was the trickster god in Igbo mythology, who synchronizes with Eshu. There's also in Igbo mythology Allah, who is the personification of the earth, just like in Greek mythology. We then have our Yoruba mythology, which is ultimately shared by Black and Brown people. It's a form of Afro-Cuban spirituality. So some of the familiar faces are obviously, Eshu, Shumade, Oshun, Yemaya, Erinle, etc., etc. Then you have the Greco-Roman mythology. I say Greco-Roman because their mythologies kind of clashed a lot, and they, just because of how close they were, there's a lot of synchronicities that happen, or synchronization that happens between the two of them. And interestingly enough, a lot of the Greco-Roman mythology was borrowed from these different groups, right? And then last but not least, we then have Christian mythology, as we know, Christian teachings, etc., etc. But the one thing I wanted to talk about was that even though we know this to be white people, right? And this to be kind of, white people that kind of pushed more of a Christian narrative, that there were other white groups that did the exact same thing. We think about the Celts and their mythology. We think about the Norse and their mythology, the Romans, the Irish, the English. I believe Norse mythology is Asgardians and etc., which was Loki was their trickster god. And so what this reveals to us is that this is actually just a function of consciousness, right? From the perspective of Yoruba, this is my ori, my prefrontal cortex, my mind, my in me, my inner essence, what's in me, right? And then my body, which is symbolized by these brackets on the outer side, right? Your material substance, or as Father Carl Jung said, from a Jungian perspective, my psyche, right? Your mind, your spirit, your inner essence. And then again, what Jung calls the matter, right? The matter, what's the matter? Your body. That's what the matter is. And that is again symbolized by these brackets here. And as I talked about earlier, is that the soul is the path from a Jungian perspective. The soul is the path that the spirit takes, right, along the trecha, along your camino, right? So you're supposed to stay on your path as a person based off of how you're just socially constructed and who you are and how you understand yourself to be. So when you have people that try to impose these these really Christian fundamentalist ideologies upon people, that is ultimately just, it's ultimately from a Jungian perspective, it's just incorrect because this leads to greater individuation of the individual, and that's supposed to happen because Daddy God is about growth. And in all of these aspects and all of these different pantheons, that's what these different deities represent. They are committed to you growing as a person and creating culture and creating art and finding new ways of educating people so that way we can produce further developments of consciousness. So there you have it, folks. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you in my next video.